Good to see everybody. Great turnout that we have, and good to see so many familiar faces. And I've been operating in this space for a while. I feel like I'm getting to know a lot of you pretty well, which I think is good. This is the kind of dialogue that I think we need, a continuous dialogue, so that you fully understand our problems. And it's not static. It continues to evolve as the technology evolves. So I wanted to give a brief overview of portfolio acquisition executive maneuver air, and then a little bit more at my level of CPE, mission autonomy. And then Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Best, who's running the Army's new UAS marketplace, is going to give a quick overview on that. Followed by that, we'll transition into what we're calling a relevance panel and bring some other folks from our team up here to talk. So if we could go to the next chart. I do want to be brief with my remarks to be able to get to Colonel Best and his portion and get to the panel. First of all, PA Maneuver Air. So these are the folks. So Major General Gill out of the Maneuver Center, or the Aviation Center of Excellence down at Fort Rucker, runs this PAE. Brigadier General David Phillips is the Deputy PAE, moved up from PO Aviation. And so you see it's very aviation focused. What I would tell you is this is where I started. I'm in the process of moving to a different PAE, moving to layered protection and integration, working with Major General Beck out at the Maneuver Support Center. So not a big deal for me. Should be transparent of all of industry because from the get-go, I've realized that autonomy is cross-cutting. Unmanned systems cross multiple communities. Once you get into the payloads, that touches all of the warfighting functions and systems. So I've known from the start that I need to be tied in with all the PAEs, and so I don't cleanly fit in any of them. Should be transparent to you. So if we can move on to the next chart. Starting off with the mission of PAE Maneuver Air. Assuming you all can read that, so I'm not just going to regurgitate, but I do want to highlight a couple things that are really laid out in the vision there. First of all, focus on large-scale combat operations. We spent about 20 years very coin-focused. We are definitely tilting that back towards large-scale combat, focused on peer and near-peer competitors like Russia and China. Second part of that is shifting from platform-centric to formation-centric. If you go listen to really all of the PAEs, you're going to hear this common thing: formation-based approach. We're looking at the system of systems level across a formation, and where do we need to make the trades to get the right level of capability outcomes that we're looking for. Third thing is interconnected manned, unmanned formations. And really that's something that I definitely carry down and is nested in what I'm doing. Launched effects, how that teams with our manned aviation platforms is a big one in this space. And so again, going back to that integration theme that I talked earlier, we have to get away from thinking about individual platforms and how do we make them work as part of a larger system. And then finally, just the critical software and autonomy solutions tied to the network. And again, a lot of these software solutions are not specific to a platform. They become cross-cutting. Where do they exist within the network, running on edge compute, reaching back to the cloud, or on an individual platform? Setting up the processes so we can collect data at the edge, mark it, tag it, get that pushed back out to industry to train and update algorithms, and then push that back out to operational units onto equipment. That is something that is a challenge for us, but we are working through how we create that CI/CD process so we can do quick software updates and push them back out. The old model of doing 1 to 2 software updates for our systems per year, that's just not going to cut it, and we realize that. So that's something we're very much focused on. So next chart, please. This is my mission, very simple. And focus on 3 big things: increasing soldier lethality, situational awareness, and survivability. And really where I got that from, if you go back, folks like General Rainey, General Buzzard, making comments over the past few years like, shame on us if ever again we make first contact with soldiers. We need to be putting machines in those situations. Pushing them forward, giving us better situational awareness. So that's very much what I'm focused on. So that goes to the vision. So it seems very, very simple, big picture, but empower soldiers with the full force and scale of American innovation. And really what that drives is that I see the investment in the space. I see where industry is going and how quickly you can move. And so I feel it incumbent on me and my team to inform the investments and the development that you're doing so that the solutions you bring to us are the things that we need and we can get them right into our formations. Next chart, please. This is how we're organized, just briefly. We have not organized our CPE as a traditional PEO. That PM up at the top there, formation-based mission autonomy, this is a system of systems-focused team, focused on solving problems. Like, how do we breach a complex obstacle? How do we create a package for last tactical mile logistics, complete with the comms links, the payloads, everything, so that we can close that gap between a company supply all the way down to the tactical edge, and then backhaul casualties. The other two product or program offices are what I call supporting efforts to that main effort. PM Autonomous Robotic Capabilities, they're the platform and payload provider. And then PM Robotic Control and Integration, led by Rob Monto. Is Rob in the room? Back here against the wall. I encourage you to talk to Rob. He is leading the effort to develop that reference architecture that I talked about earlier, the robotic control, both the software and the hardware, to start driving down the number of unique controllers that we have out there in formation. And then also those the CI/CD processes and pipelines, so we can quickly update our algorithms out at the tactical edge. So that's how we've organized. Next chart, please. And really, this is the last thing that I wanted to talk about, and that is the use cases that we're focused on for UserPack. That's really the focus of this gathering here today. First of all, contested logistics and sustainment. This is something that we're already working in. You may be familiar with programs like the Autonomous Transport Vehicle System that we've had in development for a number of years. We're in the final phases, getting ready to down select, and it'll provide an autonomy stack on our palletized load system trucks. So starting point for ground-based autonomy. But more specific to the Indo-PACOM theater, it's everything from ship to shore, shore to island, and so that's a range of different capabilities. That's heavy lift UAS. That is unmanned surface vessels to move from cargo or Navy vessels to the shore or between islands. Once on ground, that's a combination of unmanned ground vehicles and UAS to move all the way, essentially from the division level all the way to that last tactical mile, the tactical edge, to soldiers in the fight. So a range of capabilities, but again, I want to emphasize, we're not just focused on platforms. We're not just focused on trucks or unmanned ground vehicles or UAS. It's that full package of capability, the networking, robust comms links, mission planning and management tools to tie that all together. The networking tied into our predictive logistics systems that are in development. So all of those pieces. The next part, offensive fires and suppression. Now, go back and get a couple more points there. And so this is essentially using UAS to target detection and identification, and then passing those off digitally through our networks to long-range fires assets. And it could be traditional field artillery, could be launched effects. The intent is to employ teaming algorithms, so swarming capabilities, for example. Launched effects or one-way attack is a big focus area for us over the next few years. Bringing these systems together in a collaborative formation. If you followed the Launched Effects program, that is a big one for our Army, bringing together multiple systems with payloads from ISR through range extension, electronic warfare, and then lethal effects, bringing together to deliver that full package for our formations, both ground and air launch capability. And then the final piece, reconnaissance and security. And this involves using both unmanned ground and air platforms, even maritime in certain cases. Definitely for the Indo-PACOM theater, riverine operations is an area that I see potential for those RNS type of applications. And really the intent is detection, not only target detection, but maintaining contact with enemy, taking soldiers, taking our scouts out of those situations, using it to quickly close our kill chains and connect fires. So really a range of unmanned systems across the board. What I haven't really focused on is all the other applications. Counter UAS, electronic warfare, overwatch support by fire, maneuver tasks that organizations like the 75th Ranger Regiment are already working, and we want to double down on those. So tremendous potential in this area. So what I would encourage is, whether with me, with the user community, these are the kind of things that we think the investment should be targeted on. And so with that, I think up next, we're going to go into, I'm not going to go over the portfolio, what we have, just in the interest of time, because I want to go into our panel discussion. So I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Lieutenant Colonel Bess to give a brief overview of the UAS marketplace. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, you guys can hear me. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the introduction. You can go to the next chart, please. I've just got one up here. Okay, that looks way better than what we do. It's put in here. Hey, if you've heard me speak before over the last couple of months at different conferences, I normally start off with a dad joke. I'm not going to do that today. Instead, what I'm going to do is tell you a story of why I'm going to be looking at my phone for notes. So this morning, I opened up my bag. I had some handwritten notes on some, 3x5 cards. Lo and behold, my son, who's 8 years old, had written all over them in crayons, cut them up, and he made an incredible paper airplane. I should have brought it to show you today. So that is why I'm looking at my phone. My apologies to let you guys know. So U.S. Marketplace. Again, I'm Jeff Bess. I've been doing this since about December. This is my second command at the 05 level. I'll probably go to do a third one because I'm crazy this summer, likely over in the FLRAA program, now Cheyenne. What I wanted to get across to you guys, since this is the Army Demand Signal Forum, is that, hey, I just want to reiterate, drones are not going away. That's pretty apparent. We're seeing that over in Ukraine and Russia. We're seeing that with Iran right now. Our soldiers need that capability, and they need it now, and they need it at all echelons, which is the heart of why we had the Drone Dominance XORG come out this summer. And we're going to actually have a Frago published to that here in the coming weeks, giving more information to our soldiers to be able to procure drones, specifically through the U.S. marketplace. It is live today. It actually went live on the 24th of March. usmarketplace.army.mil. Today we have probably about 1,000 users in there. We have at least 32 systems. We're onboarding up to about 70. My apologies, getting a spam call in the middle of this. We're onboarding up to about 70 here. We're getting the drone Gauntlet systems in there. We'll get the Gauntlet 2 systems in there as well after they complete that competition as well too. The importance of this is that we are trying to empower soldiers with the freedom to choose the right equipment for their upcoming mission sets. This is a strategic pivot away from programs of record, which take months, if years, not to develop, procure, and field. Now we can do that within days and weeks. From when you select a specific system within the marketplace, we can deliver that capability, again, in days and weeks. That's huge. We've had a great partnership with our ACC Redstone team and how we've shifted how we're doing contracting specifically. We're not doing these long, drawn-out, multi-year IDIQ contracts. What we're doing is a commercial solutions opening, and I'll talk more about that this afternoon. And we have specific calls underneath that commercial solutions opening, which is going to be your demand signal. Today, we actually have 2 calls listed on there right now. The other one just came out this past Friday. We've got one for Group 1, Group 2, and Launched Effects. And we actually had a second one that came out again last Friday for short-range reconnaissance, so at the platoon level too. So that's where you can really see the demand signal. And the great thing about the U.S. marketplace in particular is that the feedback that we get from soldiers, which goes directly to you as industry about your products, is going to inform our future requirements. It's going to help us to be able to funnel with T2Com and our FCD partners on that PA structure that General Gibbs has showed, making sure the money is going to those right efforts, specifically nested around what our soldiers need, the capabilities that they want in the field. As we know, not every unit needs the same exact capability. Think about US of old, Shadow. I used to have that program. That took years to develop, hundreds of millions of dollars to sustain. We don't need that. We need to be able to deliver capability extremely fast. And so that's why we've developed the US marketplace, and we're trying to onboard as many capabilities into that space so that our soldiers can choose the right equipment again for their upcoming mission set. And don't just think of it as systems as well too. We want to get everybody into the space. It's going to be all things drones. So if you make a specific system, if you make a payload, you do training, you do software, we want you in the marketplace. Those calls for solutions that are coming out will be your indicator to come to the marketplace and get involved with us and get onboarded to the marketplace. Again, we have to get the equipment that our soldiers need specifically for their upcoming mission set. It's not going to be dress right dress across the entirety of the Army. Some other things I'll just hit on too, just quickly, 3 tenets, and then we can start off with the panel here. So free market approach. So Onboard capability when ready. So if you have capability that you think is ready to go, I like to talk about it being kind of a TRL 7 or above system because you need it to perform out there. Again, you're going to get feedback directly from soldiers. So if they like it, if they don't like it, they're going to tell you about it in here. It looks exactly like Amazon.com. You'll see star ratings on there, and they provide feedback in there on 5 different categories as well, too. The other thing, too, wide range of buyers and sellers. So we want to get everybody into this space. So large companies, small companies, all non-traditional. We want to get you with your exquisite capabilities into this space so our soldiers can choose the right equipment, specifically what they need for their upcoming mission sets. Again, soldier focus, being able to empower those soldiers to make that choice. They're going to use their O&M dollars to make purchases up to $350K. In addition, the PMUS is going to be utilizing APA funds to give allotments to those priority units identified to the G3 to make those purchases above $350K. So again, right now we've got Group 1, Group 2, and launched effects in there. This summer we'll probably get the Group 3 systems in there, so that's when it's really going to start rising in price there too. So really focused on increasing the buying power of our operational units. Last thing I'll mention too is just the trusted storefront. Again, this is a one-stop shop for soldiers to be able to procure and browse different solutions for their upcoming mission sets too. So within that, they're going to be vetted solutions too. So I'll talk about this afternoon. I'm on another panel, just specifically the onboarding process, but part of that is going to be a demonstration where we actually verify the capabilities that you're saying your system has as well too. So we have 500 folks that work within PMUS, and we're all going to be working to ensure that those systems are appropriately vetted, and they'll even have like a check mark in there right now is what it looks like today. But eventually, whatever we test it to, that specification. So if you say it goes 40 knots and we only get to 30 knots on there, we're going to have that listed on there so soldiers can make informed buying. Last thing I'll mention too is just like we say on here, streamline, clear onboarding and compliance process. So truly trying to lower the barriers for entry to get everybody into this space as well too. The NDA compliance piece, we know that's a significant bottleneck for you as industry, especially for a lot of small businesses out there. Depending on who you talk to, the recognized assessors that work with DCMA, you have a different price when you come into it, a different timeline as well too. So we've established basic ordering agreements with those 6 companies specifically to do NDA compliance, but we're also standing up Army organic assessors, DevCom in particular, to be able to do that on behalf of you guys as well at no cost to you too. And that's really going to be based off of what Macho Man Randy Savage says, the cream that rises to the top. We're going to focus on those systems doing additional verification activities as well as NDA compliance too, to make sure soldiers can make the most informed choice when they're making their purchase. And with that, I guess we can go to the panel, sir.
All right, thanks, Jeff. So if I could, I'd like to ask Colonel Jeremy Shunke, Chris Schifoletti, Mike Rose, and of course, Jeff, you're going to stay up here with us as well. So yeah, everybody please take a seat. Yeah, I apologize for butchering your name earlier, I called you Jeff. So yeah. So really thrilled to have this panel here. I think it'll provide a really good perspective on innovation and the challenge of bringing it. So we got a range of folks here. And what I would like to do is just have each of them introduce themselves, current position, a little bit on background, and then just talk about from their current position what they see as the challenges with bringing innovation to our operational force. So starting off with Colonel Jeremy Shunke, Director of Concepts and Innovation at U.S. Army Pacific Command. So,
yeah, appreciate it, sir. Thanks everyone for green means go. Appreciate the opportunity to sit down and chat with you folks. As Colonel Gibbs said, Director of Concepts and Innovation for U.S. Army Pacific under General Clark. If you're not familiar with USERPAC, we're about 100,000 strong, covering 51% of the earth, 36 countries, major powers. The Army is often forgotten in the Pacific. The Marine Corps do a pretty good job of advertising their successes. We do not. We have a lot of gaps that we need that are a little bit different than the rest of the force. Yes, we're in conflict in Europe and the Middle East, but we're still way behind in the Pacific. One thing to consider is if conflict happens there, it could truly alter our way of life. So that's a bit of motivation. The way we do business out there is we're constantly looking at the threat, and we're constantly looking at emerging capabilities. So I take those things and I have a section that looks at building the concept of employment or the concept of operation based on that threat or that emerging technology. And we go through it, we find the requirements we need to either get after that threat or integrate that capability into our formations. And then we go and find capabilities where in which we can experiment. Earlier, Balakatan was mentioned. My organization helps fund the experimentation. So we bring you out to theater because we want to test you and experiment with your capabilities in the terrain that it's going to fight. Places like the Philippines, it's rugged, it's hot, it's humid. Just like living in Hawaii, I've been there for several years. Everything rots and rusts, and it does not last. So we need that. But we also have conditions in the Arctic. We also will be stationed in Japan. If you spend any time in the mountains of Japan, it gets very cold. Same kind of issues. Through that, then we iterate on it, kind of an agile project management, and then we come back. Okay, is that what we want? And then we go for that, and then we try to accelerate the fielding of it. The pit has come into our doors with the GTED, and it's welcome. Me coming into the position about 6 months ago, I felt that innovation had gone wild. I could not keep track of everything that was happening in theater. Recently, during one of our, we call them JPMRC, that's the Pacific Multinational PRC Readiness Training Center, one of our large training exercises. We had one in Hawaii, both in Oahu and on the Big Island, 75 different experiments. I could not track 75 different experiments. So 25th ID recently came under First Corps, so I put it on Drew Conover, who will talk later today, to help track that with our different divisions. Coming in here, I think it's a great opportunity for venture capital, particularly with the Army. The Army is different than the other services. We don't man the equipment, we equip the man. So a lot of our innovation is not capability-wise, it's our ability to alter our formations for either that capability or that threat. So the future of these fast-moving technologies and iterations is really going to be with the ground forces, because the Navy and the Air Force can't keep up with the size of their platforms. They will, but it's not like us. You could integrate something very quickly, and our soldiers will be able to adapt to that. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Jeremy. So, Jeff, you have any other comments to add here up front?
Yes, sir. I'll just talk about one challenge that we have as well. I could talk about probably for an hour, but I won't. But scaling this across the Department of War, a marketplace for everybody to be able to procure drones, and don't think of it as just aerial drones, but ground robots, submarines in the future, ensuring that we have the back-end processes within all those organizations that are the subject matter experts for those specific platforms to be able to advise units, other government agencies on their purchases. That's one of the big challenges I see today. I know that's not necessarily relevant to the demand form in particular, but that's definitely one of the things I'm thinking about.
Thanks, Jeff. So next up, Mike Rose. He happens to be my CTO at CPE Mission Autonomy. I pulled him out of the DevCom Ground Vehicle Systems Center ground vehicle robotics team. Very lucky to have him. So a very unique perspective on innovation and modernization and the challenges of bringing new kit to the force, Mike.
Yeah, no, thank you, sir. I've been in the position here as the Chief Technology Officer for CPE Mission Autonomy now for a couple months, and it's really been refreshing to see how this new Army organization is really approaching acquisition differently. And part of my role as Chief Technology Officer is doing a lot of strategic technology planning. Our demand signal is really focused on what is coming out of the proliferation of experimentation and S&T investments across the department. What are those best ideas that are emerging to the top? How much additional investment is it going to take to close that gap? And how are we as the buying team preparing our acquisition strategies to rapidly acquire and scale and spiral out tranche buys of those capabilities? I'm a 20-year civilian in the Army, and my background is in experimental prototyping and ground vehicles, specifically with the specialization of weapons, weaponized robotic systems. And Yeah, this has been the thrill of a lifetime working on this process, and I'm really encouraged to see how all these big things are coming together, from rapid acquisition authorities, flexible funding, a focus on solving problems and not buying end items, are all coming together and converging, looking at bringing systems of systems thinking to our acquisition process, understanding that it's not just one piece of kit that's going to solve it, but a true orientation on solving end-to-end warfighter problems and making sure that our success metrics are tied to warfighter operational outcomes, not how closely we have followed an acquisition process. So really encouraged. We've really embraced the new mentality of the Army transformation initiatives wholeheartedly, and I think it's already starting to bear fruit.
All right, thanks, Mike. And before we go on to our last speaker, I just want to get everybody ready. Once Chris has talked, I would like to open up the floor to questions. So be please thinking about questions that you can ask, so we don't have that awkward silence here in a minute. So next up, Major Chris Schiaffoletti. He happens to be a student here at Stanford right now. He's a General Wayne Downing Scholar, pursuing a master's degree in international policy with specialization in cyber policy and security. Also happens to be a team member with the Council on Foreign Relations and a National Security Innovation Scholar with the Gordian Knot Center here. So, Chris, over to you.
Yes, sir. Thanks. I'll keep my my comments brief, and then we can get to question and answer. But like General Gibbs said, I'm Major Schiaffoletti. I'm currently here as a General Wayne A. Downing Scholar at the Gordian Knot Center for National Security Innovation. So 2-year master's program focused on innovation with an international policy lens to it. But really, kind of my day job here is I lead rapid prototyping efforts for the 75th Ranger Regiment at the Gordian Knot Center. So we manage a team of student engineers, somewhere between 13 to 18, working on autonomous systems on behalf of the Ranger Regiment and kind of broader SOCOM goals there. So happy to talk about the intersection of rapid prototyping and academia. And then I was most recently a company commander in 3rd Ranger Battalion, so I can talk a little bit about kind of how we're seeing these changes at the tactical edge, and how organizations like the Ranger Regiment and infantry formations are moving the ball forward in terms of changing the way we approach some of these systems.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So at this point, heard from a good range of folks. We got a good mix of acquisition professionals up here, but also some pros directly out of the operational force. So I would really just appreciate any questions that the audience has here.
Good morning, sir. Thank you all for the presentation today. Requirements. We did see focus areas up there. Thanks. We did see focus areas up there. I didn't see the word requirements up there, and unfortunately, the integrated priority list, which contains all the requirements, are still classified. So how does a startup company that does not have a facility clearance get access to the good stuff so they know exactly what you're buying rather than thematically what you're looking for?
Okay, I'll start with this one and then open it up to other members of the panel. So there's a different approach that we're trying to take on requirements. So instead of starting with a very detailed requirement that specifies a particular thing, we're developing what's called characteristics of need statements, very broadly, so all the way up to the PA level. So a PA maneuver error characteristic of need, for example. The intent of that document is to really communicate our broad problem areas to industry and start that discussion. And then there would be a series of breaking down individual problems within under each of those umbrellas. The acquisition that I'm doing in CPE mission autonomy, the way I characterize it, is acquisition in reverse. It's the reverse of the process that we've traditionally followed. So prototype around a problem with an operational unit in the field with industry, get to the solutions that work, and in parallel, work with the user community to write the requirements so you can actually take that into production and put resources against it and scale. It's kind of flipping our old model on its head. So that is really one aspect of it. The second piece is just communicating with operational units. I think to the extent you can, getting out there and understanding what those problems are, so that you have an opportunity to you have better insight into what we're doing. As for getting insight into the more classified, we are really working hard across the enterprise to knock down those barriers. So communicating fully open, sam.gov, putting everything that we can. We do recognize that as we go down the road of development, we need to bring folks behind the firewall and start sharing CUI and even higher levels of classification. So we're working very closely with organizations like the Army Applications Lab, through consortiums like NAMC or DOTC to help companies set up the facilities, get the clearances, get CAC cards when needed, get the mechanisms like contract or CRADAs so that we can start sharing those levels of information. So I do recognize the challenges there, but we are working to knock down those barriers. Anybody else on the panel?
Yeah, I can take that real quick too, sir. I mentioned about the soldier feedback loop when I was up here speaking before too. So that's that real-time feedback that's going to go directly from units, as General Gibbs was talking about, getting that real-time feedback, which is going to go directly to you as the vendors to tell you what they like and what they don't like about the system. The uniqueness about our marketplace too is that all of industry is going to be able to see that feedback. So you're going to see the star ratings, actually what they wrote up in there, what they like and what they don't like. And then we're going to take that data, identify trends, and work with T2Com on those capability of need statements, which will then come back through as a call for solution under our overarching commercial solutions opening. So we're very much trying to be as very communicative with industry as possible. We understand that in the past you may have responded to a source of sought notice on RFP, you found out you didn't win the award, and that's all you heard. We're not doing that anymore. We're trying to communicate with you in real time exactly what we need, and we're getting that feedback directly from soldiers. So if anything, it's going to improve our requirements process in the future. And then that information comes to you guys very, very quickly. I think we have about 4 or 5 different calls for solutions that are going to be coming out here in the next 2 to 3 months, specifically from PMUAS too. So keep an eye on those in sam.gov, but also on the Marketplace website.
Yeah, Jeff, I'm glad you mentioned the commercial solutions opening. That is not unique to the UAS marketplace. We're really doing that across the enterprise, making much broader use of CSOs, and that's a great way of knocking down those initial barriers down, which makes it hard for industry to understand what our requirements are. So, next up, see one in the back here.
Hey, gentlemen, Jason Davis with Shield AI. So how do you balance all of the outcomes that you get from fuse efforts and these smaller group competitions with sister service down selects in similar efforts? Like, how are you pulling truly the joint solution and finding those nuggets in the smaller competitions and the larger nuggets, I guess you could call them, in the bigger ones?
Mike, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, Jason, you've really hit on a huge challenge really across the, I mean, even wrapping our arms around just the diversity of activity that we have within the Army, let alone like all the joint services. I know we have a tremendous proponency in the higher levels of the Army that are forcing us to make sure that we are looking across and making sure we're extracting some of the best. It's imperfect as best. We don't have, I don't think, robust enough solutions, but we are aware, we are building out our battle maps, and we are making sure that within our office, we are embedding the right technical personnel into those joint experimentation activities to make sure that we are, to the greatest extent possible, learning from and even leveraging the investments and the opportunities that other services are providing to learn from that collectively. I'd say we have particularly a close relationship with the Marine Corps and are working together with them specifically with a lot of their experimentation venues, but there's a lot of area to grow in that area.
Yeah, to tack on to that one, from a component of Indo-PACOM, it is a challenge. We work through their folks that are looking at capabilities, but a lot of it comes down just to relationships that we've built with DARPA, with DIU, with the Strategic Capabilities Office, and in trying to latch in with them. DIU has the on-ramp hubs, and they're scattered throughout the United States. Those are good places that industry can reach out, and I reach out to them as well to see what do they have going on. I just talked to Jamie earlier about the same thing. How can I find out about what's going on in USARAF with the latest X tech? Sometimes it's open source for me, like, oh wow, that happened. I'm gonna reach out to that person. LinkedIn is a great venue for discovery learning. Skipping, drinking coffee in the morning. But it is an issue. We have it within our own formations, and General Clark has talked about it. He's seen redundancy one unit saying, hey, we've just innovated in all this stuff. Isn't it great? He said, well, I just saw something similar last week. And that's on us is to collect that and share those lessons learned. Sometimes redundancy is good. Sometimes it's wasteful. We just got to find those right opportunities to do that. When we start looking at redundancy, okay, if it's with 11th Airborne in Alaska on our Arctic conditions, or it's in the Philippines under general conditions, that's the kind of redundancy we want because we actually get some metrics out of it. It just comes down to open communication between the organizations with OSW, R&E, and then on up into HQDA and ASALT.
Yeah, all great comments. I mean, that is a challenge, Jason. I mean, what you highlight there. In fact, I've talked to Dr. Miller about this numerous times. You know, our previous Chief General George, he'd talk about, hey, we got 1,000 flowers blooming out here. How do we start bringing these things together and identify the things that we really need to double down on and take into production and scale? And so we're very much focused on that right now, and it's not just within the Army, it's the other services as well. So we are really working hard to get our arms around that. Great question. So who's next?
Sirs, thanks for doing this today. Mike Hauser from SAIC Ventures. If you can put your VC hats on, you've all had a lot of exposure to this community. What's a capability or a problem you're not seeing a lot of great solutions for that you think is a really large addressable market in the Army and or beyond? Is there something you can think about that this community could be bringing that you're not seeing that could be big?
I'll give you some thoughts from my walk yesterday about what I could, absolutely have, and it may sound wild, and maybe not to this group, is packaging. So we ship a lot of stuff back and forth, but we could find packaging that could be repurposed as additive manufacturing for whatever else we would need. I'm trying to get into the mindset of we ship parts. You can fit 5 full, low-cost munitions or one-way attack into a container, or you can fit 50 that are stackable like a solo cup. But also that comes in packaging. Can that packaging then be turned around and be a polymer that becomes a munition or a spare part or something else? So I'll be a shareholder in that adventure. Thank you.
Yeah, from my perspective with drones in particular, it's batteries, power generation. There's so many disparate solutions out there. When you talk to our units, they have a different charging cable for this battery, a different charging cable for this system that they have out there too. So we need to figure out coming to a common standard just to make it easier and lighten the load on our soldiers so that when they are fighting out there, they can quickly plug these things back in and get them into the fight as quickly as possible. So I know we're working with DEVCOM, C5 ISR, spoke at a battery panel probably about 2 weeks ago as well too, figuring out how we can create that common standard. Working with you who has the best practices in the industry to make that happen.
Yeah, I'd jump in and say I completely agree that the second, third order implications of massed autonomous systems. We got to be thinking through that power. How are we moving power around the battlefield in both liquid and battery forms? How are we enabling the swarm, right? Not only with kind of unified command and control and optimizing that for warfighter outcomes, but how are we getting those tactical swarms to the point of need? How are we enabling continuous uptime, right? How are we enabling continuous delivery of these unmanned systems to the point of need, using intelligent, predictive logistics to make sure that we always have pressure, continuous autonomous pressure where it needs to go, right? We want to enable through our open standards and architectures a whole of nation approach in employing these systems, unmanned ground systems, aerial systems, right? But we need the ability to provide that throughput, that constant pressure, that constant attritable mass at the point of need. So what are the second and third order systems that we're going to need, whether it's drones in a box to deploy it or whatever, right? I see a real under-commercialized space right now in terms of enabling that whole of system effect right now.
I'd be interested to hear from Chris as well. So what I didn't tell you in the intros is Chris kind of came up in the Army, the 75th Ranger Regiment. He's going back there this summer. He's going to be leading the innovation efforts there. So,
Yes, sir. I think, to rip off the tactical power conversation, I think we have kind of over-levered away from thinking about soldier load as a consistent point. We've added systems onto the warfighter, whether it's, purpose-built attritable systems. We have more radios than I've ever carried before, and like the battery load is just increased and increased and increased. So I think we've made a ton of efforts in terms of kind of mass power generation at the edge, but what the individual operator is wearing is still something that I think most people would say that their kit is particularly crowded and particularly heavy there. So the lighter the system, or the minimum amount of actual kind of radios, things we can actually put on a soldier's back, particularly in a unit like the one that Dave and I are coming from, that allows us to move faster and kind of go. The Army has made large strides to make themselves lighter and more mobile. We have not taken a ton of effort at the individual soldier load level to push that forward. So that's what I'd like to kind of see in the future moving forward.
Thanks, Chris. And I'll just close this up. All great responses. I was thinking power to really just expand on Mike. You mentioned swarming technologies. So this concept of orchestration, you may be familiar with a DIU project started earlier this year called the Autonomous Vehicle Orchestrator. So this idea of taking commander's intent and doing voice translation into mission planning and mission execution across a range of systems, heterogeneous systems. Dynamic retasking based on the environment and the changing enemy situation. That to me is one of those technologies that has the potential to change things in a big way. So that's a project that we're following very closely and is very much in the roadmap for our organization and mission autonomy. Next question. How are we doing on time? Are we over? Okay, last question. We'll do last question. How about that?
I'm Antoinette DeLeon from the Intelligence Capability Directorate. You talked about in a previous question redundancy and lessons learned. So at the IFCD, we're currently nominating technology for CTC rotations. So if the fuse is incorporating industry, where can we get those lessons learned so if it answers learning demands already, so that we can pull what we nominated for from the government? How would we get that information, sir? And just so that we don't have to put another technology in that the learning demand has already been answered.
Okay, that's a great question. I'll be honest, this is another area where I am kind of critical of the Army and the approach that we've taken over the last couple of years. TIC is a great thing. We've had a lot of bottom-up innovation. Where we haven't done a great job is developing the learning demands and how we're measuring performance and effectiveness of a lot of the technologies that we're putting out there so that we can make decisions on the back end of a TIC rotation. We're putting a lot of more effort into that right now, and it really starts with the operational unit, so the TIC unit itself, but then the operational user community. It goes back to if it's a maneuver-related task, the folks out of Fort Benning, the maneuver FCD, maneuver air out of Fort Rucker, fires Fort Sill. So it's getting engaged with both of those communities so that at the back end of a TIC rotation, we have clear understanding of those outcomes.
Yeah, I think
Chris, yeah.
the key to kind of collating end user feedback is to not have episodic engagement with different mission partners. And I think that's kind of the beauty of some of the things the Army's going with, the JIAP at 18th Airborne Corps, stuff at the core level, is you're talking to the same people getting kind of iterative feedback, where I think historically a lot of our soldier touch points have been episodic, and then you get another unit and they don't have the context that goes into it. Like, it's the same customer kind of, even if it's spread across over a couple months, they kind of remember you from the last time at the individual level, and then they're collating stuff that way. I think like picking one and kind of sticking with it, even though you might not get a broad perspective the same way, at that core level is something that I think is a massive step forward for the Army. Yep.
Okay, so I think we're out of time. So I just want to thank the panelists for being here today. Appreciate your comments and great questions. Thank you.
Hey, sir. I'll let you clear out, but I'll answer as we transition a couple of RFIs. One, on the power, all the power that the team has talked about, power issues with soldiers. The pit is running an experiment with the 11th Airborne solely around soldier and expeditionary power. We're going to have we're placing about $15 million in that effort. Everything from charging disparate drones to soldier-borne capability. You'll see a solicitation coming out mid-May. And then within the pit, the other piece about feedback is for everything that we do within the pit, we're going to assign, when you work with that unit, you must come back to that unit within 180 days to show what you've done with the soldiers' recommendations. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you a capabilities and what we call a capabilities and limitations report. What can it do, what it can't do, and what we recommend. And then we are doing just what the good major mentioned earlier, is that we want you to come back to that unit to be able to show them what you've done for that. And we're going to place that information on our website behind a CAC card. And so we protect the small business from, you know, air quotes, failing. And then also, but you'll get it in your hand as a company. And so we are thinking through that feedback loop. We know that it matters more when it comes back to the same customer, and then it matters to us that you are responsive to what our soldiers give you. And so I'll recap that one more time. We're doing Arctic Power out at 11th Airborne in Alaska. So if you say something can work at minus 30, we're going to find out, right? And it's going to be in February. So, yeah, I've got to go get new gear, right? So it's going to be a big deal. We're going to do that out there with the 11th Airborne. And then the other side is our feedback loop is everything that we do within the Army pit. You will get feedback from the unit with our curated through our ATEC. And then we expect you to come back within 180 days to just show us and show that unit what we've done. That way, we